In the previous lesson, we talked about setting up disks for storing the temporary videos when they're uploaded, and another disk in DigitalOcean, which is where we're going to actually store the streaming videos. So let's take this time and set that up. So to set up the disks, the first thing is I want to create a directory for my temporary disks, and that will be a local disk, because this is where we're just going to store videos in transit, and once they are processed, they will be deleted from our local system because we will be streaming them from DigitalOcean. So to create the temporary disk, we're going to storage, app, public, and we'll create a folder there called temp. And now let's define a disk in config file system that will point to that temporary folder. So over here, I'm just going to call the name temp, which is the name that we defined in our site configuration, remember? So it should match the name that we defined here. If you choose to go with a different name, make sure you update this record here. So the temp disk will be a local disk. So driver will be set to local. The root, which is a directory, is the root that we just created. So storage path, and in the storage path, we want to go to app, public, and temp directory. And the visibility, let's just set it to public, even though this is not going to be important to be public, because we'll actually just be reading these files from within Laravel. All right, that's all we need for the temp disk at the moment. The second disk that we need to create is the DigitalOcean disk, which is where we will be streaming the videos, okay? So let's actually put this down here. And I'm going to define that here, DigitalOcean. And the parameters for DigitalOcean are exactly the same as what we have for Amazon S3. As I mentioned before, what we do here is going to be the same as what we do in Amazon S3. So we are going to be defining parameters that use the same driver as S3. So the driver here will be S3. The key, which is the secret key, because we will generate an API key on DigitalOcean that will allow us talk to the DigitalOcean servers. So we'll just create an environment variable for that. So we can call the environment variable DigitalOcean spaces key. We need a bunch of things here. So that's the public key, and we need a secret key, which will be DigitalOcean. I'm just going to call it secret. We need the region, because videos are served, of course, from the cloud environment from different regions around the world. So we need to specify what region we will be serving these videos from. So it will be the region, and this will be, of course, the bucket, the region where our file bucket is stored, and we are going to see that from DigitalOcean. Then we need the bucket name. So DigitalOcean, I'm just going to say bucket. We need a couple of endpoints. So there's a CDN endpoint. And when we create DigitalOcean or we create our bucket, we have the option to serve our files directly using DigitalOcean's URL, or we can add a domain of our own and create a content delivery network URL from it. So in our case, I'm going to do that because, well, it's offered to us. It uses our custom domain. So I'm going to set up a URL for a content delivery network with our own customized endpoint. So we're just going to call it DigitalOcean CDN endpoint. Then we need another endpoint, which is the regular endpoint that is not CDN. Again, that's the direct endpoint that you can use to access the files without going through a CDN. So that will also then be DigitalOcean endpoint. Then we also need the URL, And the URL and endpoint are going to be exactly the same endpoints at the end of the day. So this is what Laravel recognizes as the URL to use to generate the files or to serve the files to the public. So this is more for Laravel's internal use. So I'm going to call this DigitalOcean Spaces URL. Then we want to add a parameter called disable asserts. And what this does is we are using the API for S3, and that comes in Laravel. There's a package called Fly System that communicates with the S3 SDK. And what Fly System does is it will try to check, if you try to read a file from the bucket, it will try to check if the file exists before it reads it, right? So we want to disable that here. We don't really need that. So we can just set this parameter to true, which means that it should just try and read the file and not do an initial check whether the file exists in the first place. We can then handle it in Laravel if the file doesn't exist and there's an error. And then set the visibility of this file system to public, because of course we want to serve the videos to the public. So these are the parameters that we're going to have for our DigitalOcean bucket or file system. So we need to go to .env and define all of these variables that we've provided here. So let's go over here, and I'm just going to paste that in, and we can start filling the information in. All right. For the key, secret, everything here is going to come from DigitalOcean. So let's head over to digitalocean.com. And if you don't have an account with DigitalOcean, I'm including a link in this video that you can use to get a $200 free trial period, a $200 credit to try DigitalOcean for free. And that is more than enough to test the functionality that we're doing in this course. So just look at the resources for this course, and there's a link there that you can click and get $200. Again, if you want to use S3, you can adapt what we do here to your S3 bucket and you would have a similar functionality. So the first thing I want to do is get the API keys. So we need to get the key and the secret for our APIs here. And to do that, I'm going to go to the settings, actually to the API. Under spaces key, I have one key already created for something else, but I'm going to create one and I'm going to call it skill meter. And that should generate a secret key and a public key for us. So here we're going to copy, that's the key, and we're going to put it here. And the secret, which I'm going to put over here. And that's the key and the secret that we need. All right, let's go over and create a bucket. And to create a bucket, we're going to do that in DigitalOcean Spaces. So if you don't have a bucket or a DigitalOcean account created yet, you can just go to create, open spaces, and that will open the spaces interface where you can actually start creating your bucket. Now, it does cost $5 a month for subscription to use DigitalOcean spaces, but you do get unlimited storage. You get 100 buckets. I think it's pretty generous what they have. And again, if you want to use the free credits that I have, use the link that I provided and you get $200 in free credits to try this out. Otherwise, just go with Amazon S3 if that's your choice. So we'll pick a region where we want to create our bucket, and that is going to be New York City 3, which is the region that we are going to specify in our .env file at the end of the day here. So let's go ahead and create a bucket. So here I'm just going to click on the region. Enable CDN is what I initially mentioned, that if you have a domain, you can create a content delivery network of your own. And so it says you can assign a custom domain in CDN settings after the spaces bucket is created. And so I'm going to enable that because I have some domains already added to my DigitalOcean account, and I can use that to create my CDN. So choose a unique bucket name, and I'm going to call this skill meter because that's the name of my project. And right here, you do have a URL for the bucket already. So we're going to create that, but you have a URL, and select the project that you want that to be in. For now, I have 2 projects, so I'll select the project I want to put this bucket in. and create your spaces bucket. And while that is creating, we can start filling some of the information here. So the bucket name we gave was skill meter. The region was New York City 3, I believe. We're going to see all the details again in here, but I believe those were the settings. Yeah, so we do have the URL here that contains the region, the name of the bucket, and then DigitalOcean. Okay, so our region is NYC3, the bucket is a skill meter, and we need to copy this endpoint as well, and that will be our DigitalOcean Spaces endpoint, which is this DigitalOcean Spaces endpoint, and that will go there. The other two endpoints are going to be exactly the same. In fact, I'm going to move them together because those are our CDN endpoints and what Laravel will use to serve the images from or the videos from. So to get our CDN endpoints, we have a setting here for Content Delivery Network. Let's go here and edit the settings, and we need to provide the custom domain that we want to use to generate our content delivery network. So let's just create a new subdomain certificate, and I'm going to attach that to skillmeter.com, which is one of the domains I have in my account already. And we get a domain certificate for free, okay? And we want to provide a custom subdomain for it. In this case, I'll just call it CDN. So our CDN domain will be cdn.skillmeter.com, and that's pretty neat if you ask me. And the certificate name, I'll just call it, it says create a name for this certificate. I'll call it skill meter certificate, and let's generate that. All right, so we have a custom domain selected here for our CDN, and we can save this. So if you look at our CDN information here, our CDN domain is what we defined here, and that is cdn.skillmeter.com. So that is the domain we're going to put in here. So https cdn.skillmeter.com, and that will also be the domain that we want Laravel to use to serve our images. Now, we also want to set, very importantly, and this is really crucially important, the course configurations. Here, if we do not set the course configuration correctly, then we will not be able to stream videos stored in the bucket on a browser. So we are going to add some course configuration parameters here that will allow us stream videos in the front end. So the first thing is we want to set the origin, and the origin is the URLs that we want DigitalOcean to allow requests to come from. So in this case, because we are developing locally, we can just set it to skillmeter.test port 3000, because that is the domain that we are using, that we will be using to serve our Nuxt application. In fact, if you go back to our configuration here under client URL, that is the URL that we said we're going to use to serve our Nuxt application, or at least in local development. So this is very important. Make sure you put that in there. And the next thing is we want to allow the get method and the head methods, because we will be getting or reading files from the bucket. So we need to allow those methods. And we're going to add a couple of headers here so that we can send those headers with our request. Any headers that you do not send or you do not add here will not be accepted in the request, and we may not be able to access videos if we don't set the right headers. So the first one we want to set is the access control allow methods, which basically specifies the methods that we can allow in the request, which are get and head in this case. We also want to set the access control allow origin. We want to set the origin header, and we want to also set the range. And the range is basically the header that asks the server to send only a portion of an HTTP message back to the client. So in this case, we will be making requests to grab different parts of the HTTP live streaming videos, and so we want to set the range header in there. So these are the parameters that we are going to set for our course settings in DigitalOcean, and we save that. and that is now applied to our bucket. So at this point, our bucket is more or less ready to use, and if we start uploading videos and there are any errors, we'll come back and fix them. But I think we are on a good foot and we are ready to dive into actually uploading some videos.